All right, let's do some ratios. So the first question says a ratio of 28 to 12 can be expressed in simplest form as. So it's very important, 28 to 12, that order, okay, can be written like a fraction, or it can be written with words, or it can be written with a colon. So 28 to 12, you could write it like that. You can write it like this, that's 28 to 12. And you could also write it as a fraction, 28 over 12. This means 28 to 12. Okay, so for this problem, we want to write this in simplest form. One of these choices will be our answer. So just like with fractions, we can find a number that can divide into both the top and the bottom, or left and right. It doesn't matter, it's all the same. So if I look at this, I look at 28 and 12, and what divides into both of these numbers? Number 4. So I could divide this by 4, and I could divide this by 4. And this will equal 7 over 3. So which choice over here matches up? Number 3. And this is the kind of work that you would want to show. All right, let's move on to number 2. I know this is a word problem, but don't let it scare you. It says, at a swimming pool, the ratio of those wearing sunscreen to those not wearing sunscreen was 7 to 5. So this is very important. People that have sunscreen on to those that do not have sunscreen is 7 to 5. So what that means is this 7 represents the people with sunscreen, and the 5 represents those not wearing sunscreen. So it says, if the number of people not wearing sunscreen was 30, then which of the following was the number of people who were wearing sunscreen? So we're trying to find out how many people were wearing sunscreen if the number of those not wearing sunscreen is 30. So it sounds very complicated, right? Well, the first thing you want to do is you want to write this out. Okay, so I'm going to set this up like a fraction so that it's really easy to see. So wearing sunscreen, I'll put as WS, wearing sunscreen, to no sunscreen, all right, like that, is 7 to 5, okay? So this is with sunscreen, this is without sunscreen. Now, what they're saying is, if the number of people not wearing sunscreen is 30, okay, so we're going to put this down here, I'm going to write 30, okay? What would this number have to be? This would be the number of people who are wearing sunscreen. So what you do is you look at, how does 5 become 30 here? Well, what you do is you multiply by 6, because 5 times 6 gives us 30. So guess what you're going to do to the 7? You're going to multiply that by 6 as well. So 6 times 7 is 42. So the number of people who are wearing sunscreen would be 42. Now, another way to do the same thing would be to set it up as fractions, and that's the way you probably are used to seeing it. Well, how would we write 7 to 5 as a fraction? We would just put 7 over 5. We have to remember that the 7 represents those people wearing sunscreen, and that the 5 down here represents those not wearing sunscreen. Okay? You put a little equal sign, you set up your other fraction, and the problem says it's going to be 30 people not wearing sunscreen. If that's the case, what would this number be? So it's the same problem, just doing it just slightly different. So you multiply this by 6 to get 30, you multiply this by 6 to get 42. And this is what we were looking for. Choice 4. All right, let's take a look at number 3. Number 3 says, on a recent math quiz, 20 of the 32 students who took the quiz used a pen, and the rest used a pencil. Which of the following is the ratio of students who used a pen to those who used a pencil? All right, so you have to look out for the ratio. It always has a similar sound to it, always comparing two things. So we're interested in knowing the ratio of pen to pencil. All right, so what do we know here? Well, we know that 20 of the students used pen. So we could put that in this spot. 20 used pens. Now, how many used pencils? Well, be careful. It's not 32. 32 represents all the students. So if 20 of those students use pen, then how many use pencil? Well, if you subtract these two numbers, you'll find out. So 32 minus 20, that's going to leave you with 12 students that used pencil. All right, and once you're at this point, you've done the hard work. All you have to do is simplify after that. And what can we reduce both 20 and 12 by? Well, we could divide both these numbers by 4. So you can use your calculator. 20 divided by 4 is going to give us 5. 12 divided by 4 will be 3. Choice 1. All right, the next question that you're going to be working on is called a unit rate question. And when you are doing a unit rate question, you're trying to find how many of something are in 1 or per unit. So for example, if you had a question where it said you drove your car 100 miles in 2 hours, how many miles per hour? Well, they want to know how many miles were you going in just 1 hour, or per unit rate. So just like the ratios, and that's what this is, it's 100 miles in 2 hours. That could be written 100 to 2, or we can write it like a fraction, which is the way we're going to prefer to do this, 100 to 2. Now this is miles, and if you want to label the units, you can. Hours. So in order to solve this problem, to find out how much of this in just one of these, well, we're going to get a fraction, and we want this bottom denominator always to equal 1, because we're looking for how many miles in just 1 hour. All right, so you have to ask yourself, how does 2 become 1 mathematically? Well, what can we divide 2 by to get 1? Well, we'll divide 2 by 2. 2 divided by 2 equals 1. And now guess what you are going to divide the top number by? You're also going to divide by 2. So 100 divided by 2 is going to be 50. All right? So the answer to this question, how many miles per hour? Well, the answer is right here, 50 miles per hour. Now let's take a look at question number 4. This is a unit rate question, and I know I'll read the question and I'll point out how you can tell it's unit rate. It says, water is pouring out of a leaking pipe. In 1 hour, 1,380 gallons came out of the pipe. Which of the following is the rate, that's a clue word, of water flowing out of the pipe in gallons per minute? So there you see that phrase, per, all right? When you see per, they want to know how much for 1 minute. So what do we know? We know that there was 1,300 gallons that came out in 1 hour. Now, since our question right here is asking about gallons, okay, there's that number, that's easy. And they want to know in minutes. Well, minutes is time, and they told us 1 hour. So when we set this up, we're not going to write 1 hour, we're going to write how many minutes are in an hour. Okay? So what that's going to look like is 1,380 gallons over how many minutes are there in 1 hour? Oh, you know that, that's 60. 60 minutes in an hour. Now, we want to know how many gallons if it was only 1 minute. So let's set up our fraction here. We want this to be 1 minute. Well, ask yourself the same questions. What do you have to divide 60 by to get 1? Well, that's simple. Divide by 60. 60 divided by 60 is 1. We'll divide 1,380 by 60 as well. And since that is way too big for me to know, I'll get my calculator out. 1,380 divided by 60 equals 23. So, and that is gallons. So, how many gallons were coming out per minute? 23 gallons per minute. 23 gallons. Okay, let's get jamming with some of these questions now. This is going to be a mix of ratio problems and per unit rate problems. So if we take a look at number 5, we see at an ice cream social, 56 people ordered chocolate and 32 people ordered vanilla. So there's chocolate to vanilla. The first question asks, what is the ratio of the number of people who ordered chocolate to the number of people who ordered vanilla? The order is absolutely important. They first talk about chocolate to, then vanilla. If they switch that around, you would have to switch the numbers around so that they follow the same order. So we know chocolate is which number? 56, right? So 56 comes first. That's chocolate to 32, which is vanilla. And if you want to write in chocolate, no. All right, 56 chocolate to 32 vanilla. Let's take a look at B. At a different event, 42 people bought chocolate and 30 bought vanilla. So I'm going to write that down right away just so that I have it straight. That's 42 to 30, and that is chocolate to vanilla. All right. The question actually says down here, does this event have the same ratio of chocolate to vanilla purchases as the ice cream social justify? So basically what they're asking, is this ratio the same as this ratio? Now I'm going to show you a quick trick on how you can tell if these two things are equal. You take the two fractions, you put them right next to each other. So 56 over 32 and 42 over 30. What you do is, to see if these two are the same fraction, just cross multiply. So and I take my calculator. 32 times 42. 32 times 42 equals, and that says 1,344. 1,344, I'll write that up here. That's what this multiplies to. And now I'm gonna multiply this way. 56 times 30 equals 1680. Obviously, these two numbers are different. They are not the same. Okay, so does this event have the same ratio? The answer is no, it doesn't. Okay, and this is your reason. Okay, you can take a look at problem number 7. You should be able to set some of this up once you try to do it by yourself. Okay, try to show as much work as possible. It's okay to make mistakes, but show that you tried. Okay, good luck.